I'm Dempsey, 32 years old, someone who's always tried to belong where I'm not wanted. At my brother William's promotion party in Dallas, the chandelier lights sparkled like they were mocking me. My name wasn't on the guest list, just a nameless +1. They seated me at a side table near the service entrance, a cracked glass placed before me, as if to remind me I wasn't worth much. My heart tightened, but I smiled, wondering if anyone saw me breaking. Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? What time is it where you are? Tell me, because this story isn't what you think. It starts with a crack but ends somewhere no one expects. The party unfolded like a perfectly staged play. The saxophone's soulful notes blended with the scent of grilled steak and jasmine from flower arrangements scattered across the hall. William, the family's shining star, stood at the center, his navy suit tailored to perfection, his smile radiant as if he was born to dazzle. My mother, Lavanna, in a fiery red silk dress, kept raising her glass, her voice sweet as honey as she announced, "My son, the youngest director in the company's history." My father, Brian, stood beside him, clapping William's shoulder, his eyes gleaming with pride as if William was everything he'd ever dreamed of. I sat at the side table near the service entrance, where the clatter of dishes drowned out the laughter. The cracked glass before me glinted under the lights, whispering, "You don't belong here, Dempsey." I tried to blend in, nodding at a few guests, sipping cold water from the glass, feeling the crack under my fingertips like a warning. I was used to being overlooked, but tonight, something in the air made my chest heavy. Maybe it was how Lavanna avoided my gaze or how William glanced at me once, his eyes blank as if I were a stranger. I told myself, just get through tonight, and I'd return to my small apartment, where I could breathe without permission. But then, Lavanna's voice cut through my thoughts like a sharp knife, booming over the microphone. "Dempsey, darling, come up here." Her tone was sweet but laced with something icy, like a sugar-coated blade. The crowd clapped, curious eyes turning to me. I stood, my simple white dress swaying, my heart pounding. I hadn't prepared a speech, hadn't been warned, but I walked to the stage because I always did what the family wanted, even when it tore me apart. Lavanna smiled, her diamond-ringed hand resting lightly on my shoulder, but her touch was cold as ice. "Today is William's special day," she said, addressing the crowd. "And Dempsey, his wonderful sister, has a special gift to share, doesn't she?" I froze, my mind reeling. A gift? I had nothing but a cheap congratulatory card in my purse. The crowd fell silent, waiting. Lavanna tilted her head, her smile widening, but her eyes were sharp as knives. "Dempsey, you know. Your little shop in Austin, that quaint $300,000 store, would be the perfect gift for William to expand his company. Our family always shares, don't we?" Scattered applause broke out, but I felt the blood in my veins turn to ice. That shop was my dream, built from sleepless nights of planning, a loan I repaid with sweat and tears. They wanted me to give it up, right here, in front of hundreds of eyes. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling as I gripped the edge of my dress. "Mom, I can't," I said, my voice small but clear, like a pebble dropping into a still lake. The crowd murmured, a few people coughed. Lavanna kept smiling, but it was a mask about to crack. "Oh, Dempsey, don't be modest. You know William needs it more." She stepped closer, whispering just for me, "Don't embarrass me." I looked at William, hoping for a flicker of empathy, a sign he'd defend me as I'd done for him, when I sent him $50,000 to save his company, when I stayed up nights editing his reports until dawn. But William just stared at his wine glass, lips pressed tight, as if I were a problem to be dealt with. My chest felt crushed, but I stood taller, my voice firmer. "That shop is mine. I poured my heart into building it. I won't give it to anyone." In that moment, I heard glass shatter before I felt it. Brian, my father, had hurled his wine glass at me. It smashed on the marble floor, shards scattering, one slicing into the back of my hand. Red wine stained my white dress, like blood from an unseen wound. I staggered, my mind spinning, but I didn't fall. The crowd gasped, whispers rising, "My God, what did he do?" But no one stepped forward. No hand reached out. Levana stood there, hand over her mouth, but her eyes weren't worried, they were disappointed, as if I'd done something wrong. Blood dripped from my hand, mixing with the wine on the floor, forming red streaks like flowers blooming on cold stone. I looked at Brian, his face flushed, eyes blazing with the anger I'd feared as a child. "Selfish brat," he roared, his voice echoing through the hall. "We gave you everything, and you dare refuse your brother?" I wanted to scream, to tell them about the bills I paid for them, the nights I slept on a couch so William could rest. But I just stood there, breathing hard, each heartbeat like a hammer. I glanced at the cracked glass on the side table, now feeling like it was looking back at me, the only friend who understood this pain. I stepped off the stage, barefoot on the glass shards, ignoring the stinging pain. The crowd parted, leaving a narrow path like a sentence. William still didn't look up. Levana began clapping, as if it were all a performance, but the applause was hollow, dissolving into the air like smoke. Outside, the Dallas air was cool, but I felt like I was burning. I called a cab, blood dripping onto the leather seat, the driver glancing but saying nothing. At the hospital, the fluorescent lights made me shiver. The nurse bandaged my wound, her voice gentle. "Is anyone coming for you?" I shook my head, tears finally falling, not from pain, but because I realized my family didn't just abandon me, they chose the side of the one who hurt me. The cracked glass, now just a memory, became a reminder that I couldn't keep living in their shadow. But what I didn't know, sitting on that hospital bed with my bandaged hand, was that this story was just beginning, and that crack would lead me to a truth far more painful. The day after the humiliation at William's party. I woke in my small Austin apartment, early sunlight filtering through thin curtains, but it couldn't chase away the cold gripping my chest. My bandaged hand throbbed, each movement a reminder of the moment I walked out of that Dallas mansion. Blood and wine staining my dress, my family's indifferent eyes carved into my heart. I tried to reclaim normalcy, brewing coffee, but the familiar aroma couldn't mask my unease. My phone buzzed, a number I didn't know. I answered, my voice still hoarse from the night before. "Hi, Dempsey, this is Rachel from Horizon Realty," the voice said, professional but detached. "I'm confirming the 3 p.m. appointment to view your Austin shop. Would you like to meet in person or use the lockbox?" I froze, the coffee mug nearly slipping from my hand. "My shop? I'm not selling anything," I said, my voice faltering. Rachel hesitated, flipping through papers. "That's odd. The appointment was booked under your name, with Brian Sullivan as co-signer. The account lists it as your property." My mind spun, as if the floor were collapsing beneath me. My little Austin shop, the bakery with its yellow walls and lingering vanilla scent, was the dream I'd built from scrimping every penny, from sleepless nights perfecting recipes. It wasn't just a $300,000 asset, it was proof I could stand on my own, despite my family calling me a hopeless dreamer. I hung up, my heart pounding, and rummaged through my purse, where I always kept a copy of the shop's contract in a zipped pocket. My fingers trembled as I opened it, and my heart stopped, the contract was gone. Memories flooded back, sharp as a blade. 2 weeks earlier, at a family dinner at Levana's, Brian had accidentally grabbed my purse when leaving the table. "Oops, thought it was your mom's," he'd laughed, returning it with a too-perfect clumsiness. I hadn't checked, because I trusted him, or rather, I wanted to believe my family wasn't full of liars. But now, sitting in my quiet apartment, I realized it wasn't an accident. They'd taken the contract and were trying to sell my shop, as if I were a pawn in their game. I stood, pacing, my breath ragged. Anger surged, but it was laced with pain, the pain of a daughter who once thought her parents were the safest place in the world. I wanted to call Levana, to scream that I saw through them, but I stopped. I'd learned last night that emotions weren't my weapon against them. I needed action, clarity. I opened my laptop, emailing Ellen, a lawyer I'd met at a workshop last year. "Ellen, I think my family's trying to take my shop. They have the contract without my permission. Can we meet soon?" I hit send, feeling like I'd dropped a stone into a chasm, unsure if it would hit bottom or pull me down with it. That afternoon, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Lavanna, her voice soft as an autumn breeze, but I heard the sharpness beneath. Dempsey, darling, I know last night was tense. Come home this afternoon, okay? Just me, your dad, and you. Let's talk like family. I wanted to refuse, to cut all ties, but a part of me, the part still craving an apology, a shred of kinship, agreed. I drove to their suburban Dallas house, once a home, now just a staged set. Lavanna opened the door, her green silk dress flowing, her smile perfect as a painting. Inside, the scent of freshly baked butter cookies wafted, the coffee table adorned with carnations and a gleaming silver teapot. Brian sat in an armchair, newspaper in hand, but his eyes were sharp as knives when I walked in. No William, just the three of us, as Lavanna promised. Sit, honey, she said, gesturing to the velvet chair where I'd once opened Christmas presents. But I didn't sit. I stood, hands in my coat pockets, feeling like a cornered animal. We need to talk about the shop, Lavanna began, her voice gentle but heavy with command. You know William needs it to expand his company. You don't really need that bakery, Dempsey. You're always busy, traveling. Think of the family. I almost laughed, but my throat was dry. They didn't apologize for last night, didn't mention the cut on my hand, not a word of accountability. Instead, they wanted me to surrender my dream, as if it were a given. Brian tapped his fingers on the table, his voice low but cold. Your mom's right. This is your chance to prove your family. It's just paperwork, Dempsey. He slid a manila envelope toward me, containing a transfer of ownership contract, my signature already forged at the bottom. I stared at the document, the words dancing like flames, and felt a wave of anger rise, not hot, but cold, sharp as ice. You stole the contract from my purse, I said, my voice low but clear, like a bell ringing in the silent room. Lavanna blinked, her smile faltering. What are you talking about? Don't be dramatic, Dempsey. But I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes, like a fish caught in a net. Brian stood, towering, intimidating, but I didn't back down. This isn't family, I said, pushing the envelope back. This is theft, and I won't let you take what's mine. I turned and walked out, not looking back even as Lavanna's voice called my name, faint as a breeze. In the car, I gripped the steering wheel, my breath shaky, but not from fear. I felt a new fire, not to destroy, but to rebuild. I called Ellen, my voice steady, they're trying to sell my shop. I need you now. As I hung up, I looked through the windshield, the sunset red as blood, and knew the shop's contract wasn't just paper. It was my heart, and I'd fight to keep it, even if it cost me the family I once called home. The days after leaving Lavanna and Brian's house felt like walking a tightrope. Each step costing blood and tears. I once thought family was the safest place. Now, I stood amidst the ruins of that trust. After discovering they were secretly selling my Austin bakery, the dream I built with sweat and tears, I vowed not to let them take what was mine. The fire in me was no longer the pain from the night of humiliation at William's party but a cold, sharp resolve, like a honed blade. I was ready to fight, but I didn't expect the most painful truth to come not from my parents but from the person I once saw as my rock, my brother, William. That morning, I sat in my small apartment, sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating dust motes like unspoken secrets. I opened my laptop, checking emails, trying to focus on work to escape the family nightmare. A new notification blinked from an unfamiliar address, clara.sullivan87@gmail.com. Clara, William's wife, who always kept her distance with polite smiles and guarded eyes. The subject line was simple, "You need to hear this." I frowned, my heart racing for no reason. I clicked the attachment, a nameless audio file, no description. I put on headphones, hit play, and William's voice filled my ears, low and confident, like when he pitched to hundreds. But this time, he wasn't talking business strategy. "Mom, listen," he said, his tone calculated. "Dempsey doesn't deserve that shop. She's just a baker, no vision. I told the broker to list it under her name. She won't know until it's too late. Levana's soft laugh followed, cold as winter wind. Smart, my boy. But what if she finds out? William replied without hesitation, she won't dare stand up to the whole family. She's weak, always has been. I sat frozen, my breath caught in my throat. The recording was a knife, not just piercing my heart but shredding the memories I'd cherished. William, who I'd slept on office floors to help finish projects, who I sent $50,000 to save his failing company, was the mastermind. Not Levana or Brian, whom I'd learned to guard against, but my brother, who I believed would protect me. My chest felt crushed, not from pain, but from a new, icy anger, sharp as a frozen lake before a storm. I played the file again, each word another cut. Weak, he'd said. I looked around my apartment, the shelves I'd painted, the sign I'd designed, the faint vanilla scent from yesterday's test batch. Weak? I'd built this shop from nothing, paid off every cent of debt with late-night shifts, and he dared call me that? I stood, pacing, my hands clenched until my knuckles whitened. But then I stopped, took a deep breath. Anger wasn't the answer. William wanted me to crumble, to react with tears or pleas. I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. I opened a new email, attaching the recording to Ellen. This is proof, I typed, my fingers shaking but my words cold. William's behind the shop sale. I want him to pay. I hit send, feeling like I'd loosed an arrow into the dark, unsure who it would hit but certain it would find its mark. Then I called Clara. The phone rang twice before she answered, her voice soft, almost a whisper. Dempsey, I'm sorry. I overheard that conversation, and I couldn't stay silent. I didn't know whether to thank or suspect her, but I only said, why now? She hesitated. Because I saw how they treated you that night. Anne. I'm pregnant. I don't want my child growing up in a family of lies. Clara's confession was a cold gust, making me shiver. I hung up, sank onto the couch, and stared out the window. Clouds were rolling in, dimming the sunlight, as if the sky was waiting for something. The recording wasn't just evidence, it was a mirror, reflecting William's true face, my family's true face. I thought of the times he'd patted my shoulder, called me little sis, and now I saw it was all an act. But that mirror also showed me, not the weak girl he thought, but a woman who'd built a dream from ashes and wouldn't let anyone take it. I stood, opened the small safe in my bedroom, and pulled out another copy of the shop's contract, one I'd kept separately, just in case. I smoothed the paper, the words affirmation, this is mine. I called a locksmith, ordering all the shop's locks changed before morning. Add a deadbolt, I said, my voice firm. As I hung up, I felt a new strength, not loud or showy, but quiet, like an underground river ready to sweep everything away. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen, a cold cup of tea beside me, the recording echoing in my mind. I thought of William, his smug smile, how he stood silent when I needed him most. But I also thought of Clara, her courage in sending that file, knowing it could ruin her marriage. I opened my laptop again, saving the recording in a folder labeled Truth. I didn't know what I'd do with it, go public, give it to Ellen, or keep it as a shield. But knowing it existed was enough to make me feel I was no longer a victim. Dawn came, pale light filtering through the curtains, illuminating the shop's contract on the table. I picked it up, my fingers tracing my signature, not the forged one, but the real one, signed with belief in myself. The recording had changed everything, not just by exposing William, but by reminding me I was stronger than they thought. I stood, slipped on my coat, ready to meet Ellen. My shop would stay mine, and William, and the whole family, would soon learn they'd underestimated their opponent. I met Ellen at her law office, a tidy space smelling of old paper and coffee. She pushed her glasses up, opening a thick file, her eyes sharp but warm. Dempsey, I've reviewed everything, she said, tapping a page. And here's the good news, not only is the shop yours, but you legally own the suburban Dallas house where Levana and Brian live. I blinked, my mind blank. Their house. You mean, Ellen nodded, pointing to a line in the document. You bought it in 2012, when they faced foreclosure. The deed's still in your name. They're living there on assumption. Ellen's words were a lightning bolt through the fog in my mind. I remembered that year, Levana's panicked calls, Brian's trembling voice as the bank threatened. I'd drained my savings, taken out a loan, to save that house, thinking it was a daughter's duty. But they never paid me back, never mentioned it. I looked at Ellen, my voice hoarse. They think it's theirs. She smiled, not with amusement, but empathy. Now, you decide. Keep it, sell it, or, she paused, letting me fill in the blank. I left the office, my head spinning, but not with indecision. I knew what I had to do. Not for revenge, but to set a boundary, a clear line between me and those who tried to erase me from their lives. I called Ellen from the car, my voice steady, sent an eviction notice. Today. She didn't question me, only asked, "You sure?" I looked through the windshield, the sunset red as blood, and said, "Absolutely." 3 days later, the eviction notice was served, no warning given. I wasn't there when the police arrived, but William, with his habit of recording everything, posted a video from the security camera to the family group chat. I opened it, my hands slightly trembling, not from fear, but curiosity. In the video, Brian, in a wrinkled bathrobe, stood at the door, mouth agape as he took the envelope from the officer. Levana stood behind, hair disheveled, clutching a porcelain mug, her face hardening like stone. Brian tore open the envelope, scanned it, then slammed it against the wall, roaring something inaudible. Levana dropped her mug, it shattered on the floor, like a declaration of defeat. The officer turned away, job done. The video ended, but I watched it again, not to gloat, but to confirm, this is real. I closed my phone, sitting in my bakery, the scent of vanilla and flour wrapping around me like a hug. But victory didn't feel like I expected. Instead, a deep sadness settled, not for them, but for how much I'd once loved them. I opened my laptop, logging into a public forum I knew family and friends would see. I uploaded everything, the $50,000 loan receipt to William, the bills I paid for the house, Levana's email begging me just this once to save them. I didn't write a long post, just one line, "This is the truth, if you want to know." I hit post, closed the laptop, feeling like I'd dropped a cage into the sea, not caring where it drifted. That night, I stood in my bakery, the soft yellow lights glowing on freshly baked trays. I thought of the Dallas house, now empty, no longer filled with Levana's laughter or Brian's low voice. It wasn't my home anymore, but it was never truly theirs. I brushed a tray of macarons, their pastel colors a reminder that I'd created my own world, despite everything. The shop's contract, now safe in a lockbox, wasn't just paper, it was my heart, and I'd kept it. But deep down, I knew this victory wasn't about standing over them. It was choosing not to stand beside them anymore. I texted Ellen, asking her to prepare the house for sale. Use the money to pay off the bank and donate the rest to a youth support organization, I wrote. Label it For Dreams That Won't Be Stolen. Ellen replied instantly, "You're truly special, Dempsey." I smiled, not for the compliment, but because, for the first time, I felt special, not because of them, but because of me. The first light of morning slipped through the bakery's windows in Austin, bathing the macaron trays in gold like a gentle promise. I once thought I was a misfit piece in my family's puzzle. But now, standing here amid the scent of vanilla and flour, I felt a peace I'd never known. After fighting to keep my shop, the dream built from sleepless nights and a broken heart. I'd reclaimed not just my property, but myself. Legal action had forced Levana, Brian, and William out of the house they called theirs, and the truth I'd shared publicly had exposed their true faces. But this victory wasn't about standing on their ruins. It was the moment I chose to walk away, leaving the past behind and finding a new Dempsey, no longer defined by cracks, but by the strength to heal them. I stood behind the counter, my fingers brushing a cracked glass, not the real one from that horrific party night, but a replica I'd found in a thrift shop, as if fate wanted to remind me of my journey. The glass, with its spiderweb fracture, was no longer a symbol of abandonment. It was proof that broken things could still be beautiful, could still endure. I placed it on a wooden shelf behind the counter, where the light caught it, making the crack shimmer like a gem. Every morning, as I opened the shop, I looked at it and whispered, "You did it, Dempsey." The weeks that followed, I slowed down, as if savoring every moment of freedom. I repainted the shop's walls a softer yellow, like morning sunlight, and hung small paintings by local kids, gifts from a class I'd sponsored. The bakery wasn't just a place to sell pastries, it was a space of joy, filled with customer smiles and the laughter of new staff who called me boss with genuine respect. But true peace came from smaller things, like mornings on the porch, sipping mint tea, listening to birdsong, knowing no one could take this dream away. One afternoon, while arranging cupcakes, I received an envelope from Clara, William's wife. Inside was an invitation to a baby shower, on thick cream paper with elegant handwriting. At the bottom, Clara had written a short note, "I'm sorry, Dempsey. You deserved better." I held the card, my fingers tracing the ink, and felt a gentle wave in my chest, not anger, but relief. Clara, though late, had chosen truth, and that was enough for me to respect. I didn't reply, didn't attend the shower. Instead, I wrote a check to a youth support organization, noting, "For dreams that won't be stolen." I sent it off, needing no one to know, because kindness doesn't need an audience. That evening, I invited Lila, my college best friend, for dinner at my apartment. I cooked a simple meal, spaghetti with homemade tomato sauce, green salad, and a bottle of white wine Lila brought. We sat around my small wooden table, the hanging lamp casting a warm glow, and for the first time in months, I laughed freely, not to hide pain. Lila talked about her new project, a book she was writing, and I shared ideas for the bakery, a small reading nook, free baking classes for kids. When Lila raised her glass, saying, "To the tables we build ourselves," without begging for a seat, I clinked my glass with hers, tears shimmering but not falling. "And never begging again," I added. After dinner, I cleaned up, leaving the cracked glass on the table, the streetlight making it glow like a beacon. I thought of the girl who stood at the party's edge, clutching her dress, trying to belong where she wasn't wanted. That girl was gone, not destroyed, but grown into me, a Dempsey who no longer sought approval from those who couldn't see her worth. I opened an old wooden box, where I kept mementos from harder days. Inside, I found a small photo, me at 12, on a stage accepting a math medal, smiling brightly despite messy hair and an oversized t-shirt. I brushed the photo, whispering, "Kid, you were always enough, even when they didn't see." I placed the photo beside the cracked glass, the two objects telling the same story: I survived, and I'll keep going. I didn't need the Dallas house, didn't need Lavanna, Brian, or William's acknowledgement. I had my bakery, friends like Lila, and myself, and that was enough. I opened the window, letting the night air rush in, carrying the scent of jasmine and the city's hum. I no longer waited for an apology call, no longer checked my phone with futile hope. Silence was now my friend, not my enemy, wrapping around me like a gentle but strong shawl. I sat down, writing a post for the bakery's social media, not to boast of victory, but to share a story. Sometimes, family isn't where you're born, but where you choose to belong, I wrote. If you've ever had to leave those who hurt you to find yourself, tell me. I read every word, because we all deserve to be heard. I hit post, not caring how many would see. What mattered was that I'd spoken, and that voice was mine, one no one could take away. Dempsey's story teaches us that your worth doesn't depend on others' acceptance, even family. When faced with betrayal, you have the right to set boundaries, protect your dreams, and choose peace over pain. Stand up boldly, use truth and action to affirm yourself, as Dempsey did with her shop and her life. Healing begins with believing you're enough, even when someone tries to erase you. Take action today, set a goal to protect what you cherish, and share your story in the comments. Like, comment, and subscribe to spread these profound lessons. Your support is the spark that fuels more meaningful content.